If you're a fan of animated shows, you're likely a fan of Bluey. But did you know that before Chili's two daughters became such big hits, there were other Healer siblings who were just as entertaining? The Healer surname comes from Bandit's side of the family, who is the father of Bluey and Bingo. Before the episode Fairy Tale, we knew little about his past, other than the fact that he had a younger brother, Stripe, and that his parents were still alive. It was in this episode that we finally got confirmation that the Healer family consisted of 5 members, as there was also Radley, the eldest brother, whom keen-eyed fans had already suspected existed due to a photo seen in Grandma Nana's living room in the episode Charades. But with several clues spread across all 3 seasons, we were able to piece together what life was like for the Healer family in the past, and we now know exactly how they lived during the wild 80s. Check it all out with us here. So jump on board because another Cinewave is starting now! Similarities between the Healer brothers. Throughout the show, we see that the 3 brothers are completely different from one another, yet they also have many things in common. Starting with Bandit and Stripe, we can see that since they have lived in the same city for the past few years, the two are closer. After all, Radley works in the oil industry in Western Australia, which is far from Brisbane. Well, he used to work there until his fiancée made him quit and move there with her. For this reason, during the first 2 seasons, we see Bandit, Bluey, and their family frequently getting together with Stripe, Trixie, and their daughters. We even see Chili and Trixie going out together to play field hockey and watch rugby games at the stadium, sometimes joined by Frisky. But whenever he could, Radley was also hanging out with his brothers, doing the same thing. In fact, during a phone call, we see that Radley's profile picture saved on Bandit's phone is a photo of the 3 Healer brothers at a game, probably rugby, together. This shows that the 3 brothers have been fans of the same sports since they were kids. And we have other evidence to support this. For instance, in one of the first minisodes released in the first batch of 2024, called Letter, a 5-year-old Bandit describes his life in his little drawing notebook and mentions that Radley used to play on the school rugby team. Additionally, Bluey's dad is such a sports fan that even when the little dog encounters him in her dreams, he's playing with his friends, including Stripe. Moreover, despite having different fur colors, we can see that in this sense, the father of the show's protagonist and Bingo resembles Stripe, who is the youngest of the 3, while Bandit is the middle brother. Radley, the eldest of the 3, is a bit different from the rest of the family, but we'll talk more about that shortly. For now, let's discuss the differences between the Healer brothers. Although many think that the first time we see the 3 Healer brothers as kids is in the episode Fairy Tale, that's not the case. But before we dive into that, if you're also a fan of this animated family, drop a comment below with #Healer.
Guys, I'm telling you!
Back to the 3 Healer brothers. In Bluey's family room, there was already a large picture of the 3 brothers together as children. In it, we can notice how their personalities were completely different. You can see that Stripe seemed to be the most teased of the 3, which makes sense since he's the youngest brother, and that makes a big difference, especially with 3 brothers. Especially because, in the past, they always enjoyed teasing each other quite a lot, unlike sisters who are usually much more loving towards one another, as we can see with Bluey and Bingo, and with Chili and Brandy, who even as adults still remember their childhood games fondly. In the episode Fairy Tale, we really see that Stripe was the brother who suffered the most among the 3. But we can notice that this mostly came from Bandit rather than Radley, who even reprimanded the middle brother for teasing the youngest too much. And it was precisely because of this that we see Radley, as the eldest brother, taking on the role of the most responsible one, deciding to teach Bluey's dad a lesson when he was just 12 years old so that he would be, in a sense, bewitched and would stop teasing Stripe for a while. This was something that made a huge difference in the life of the Blue Healer, the father of our protagonist. At that same time, he also realized that he needed to be a better brother, using his hat to help Stripe avoid stepping on thorns. And then, he ended up meeting the love of his life, Chili, when she was still a little girl, even though she doesn't remember it. As we've discussed, after that moment, we see that Bandit learns his lesson and becomes a much better brother to the youngest Healer, strengthening the bond between them that we can observe today, with the 2 of them always being together whenever they can. For example, we see that Bandit's and Stripe's families have the tradition of spending Christmas together, which is definitely awesome. Additionally, we see that Bluey and her 2 cousins also have a habit of going to Grandma Nana's house to spend time playing together with the family matriarch. They also enjoy playing together at Bluey's house or sometimes via video call, as we see in the episode Facey Talk. Moreover, when it was time for Radley and Frisky's wedding, the couple chose Chili's house for the ceremony, and the 4 cousins had the privilege of being chosen as the Flower Girls. Another thing that shows how close the brothers are is that when Bandit discovers that his older brother is going to quit his oil job in the West to move to Brisbane because of his marriage, we see him start to think about how great it would be to have the three brothers together again, like in the good old childhood days, something that probably hasn't happened in many years. And Radley tells his younger brother that he should worry less about certain things and just relax. Those words definitely served as inspiration for Bluey and Bingo's dad to finally pull that for sale sign out of his yard. If you've made it this far, you must be as big a fan of animated shows as we are. So make sure to subscribe to our channel right now because we're all about what you love. And the three Heeler brothers, and therefore the Bluey family we know from the show, all exist thanks to the union of Bob and Chris in a distant past. The most interesting part is that while we know Grandma Nana well, we've also managed to gather some information about Grandpa Bob's personality and traits from his youth. For example, we can deduce that at some point between the present day and the wild 80s, when the three Heeler brothers were still kids, their father suffered some kind of accident. This is evident because the character is missing a piece of one of his ears. And it's definitely not something he was born with, as we can see in the fairy tale episode where both of his ears are completely intact. Furthermore, we notice in the same episode that the boy's father has some kind of serious memory problem, as he can't even remember the names of his own sons.
What do you want, Stripe? Brad, Gerald, whatever your name is.
In the episode The Room, we discover that the problem is so severe that he gave only one Christmas present to Bluey and none to Bingo, because he forgot that his second granddaughter had been born.
Because he forgot I was born. Yes, he forgot you were born.
Another thing we learn about Grandpa Bob in the minisode letter is that he has a habit of getting nervous during games where the boys are playing, to the point of yelling at Radley during a rugby match in front of everyone. Finally, we discover that Grandpa Bob's absence for over 2 seasons happened because he had spent a long time in India, far from all the family members, in a moment of spiritual reflection. In fact, in the episode Ghost Basket, we had some hints of this, as we noticed a postcard from someone close that was stuck to the fridge door. This indicates that Grandpa Bob, despite being very important to the show's storyline, is still somewhat of a mysterious character. But it seems like we'll see much more of him in Season 4. Grandma Nana, on the other hand, is much more present in her granddaughters' lives, being incredibly loving with them, even giving them ice cream whenever they ask. This is quite the contrast from how she was with the three Heeler brothers, much stricter in the old-fashioned way, of course, even going so far as to chase Bandit with a sandal in hand. But she was still very loving when she needed to be. In other words, she knew how to love and discipline at the same time. Radley is known not only for marrying Bluey's godmother Frisky, but also for being completely different from his brothers, his father, and his mother. Of course, we could also say that Bandit is completely different too, as he's the only one of the siblings with completely blue fur. But Radley is different in another way, since he has much more voluminous fur, which is also his mane. Additionally, the colors of his fur range from blue to light cream, which is very different from the tones of his brothers and other known relatives. All of this has led some fans to speculate that Radley might have been adopted before Bandit was born, at a time when Grandma Nana thought she couldn't have children. And then she became pregnant and had her third baby, Little Stripe. But as we've said, these are just theories with no real evidence. The fact is that the three brothers are very close and surely formed a group in their childhood that must have been a handful for their parents. They must have had a lot of fun. Can you imagine if someday a show focusing on these three characters were released? I think it would be amazing, don't you? We've got 2 really cool videos for you to watch so you can stay with us, exploring everything about cartoons and animations. Pick whichever you want to watch first and have fun. Thanks, and see you next time!